I get it. You want to play and you want to get the serve in. So a lot of players, and there's hundreds of thousands of them, did this in the beginning of their tennis career. They took the frying pan grip and lined up and then punched the ball in. And I get it. I get it that it's really, really hard to learn right from the get-go with a continental grip. But I have this scenario a whole lot. Meike, I want to get more power on my serve. Nope, not going to happen with that grip. Again, the frustration is real for both the player and the coach because it is a process. But let me tell you, you will never reach your full serving potential if you stay in a frying pan grip. You are just too limited. If you're okay with having, yes, it can be a fairly consistent serve, right? You can place it. You get okay pace on the ball. If your goal is to keep the ball in play, get the point started, by now, yes, I think it's a legitimate way to start the point. However, if you want to continue to grow as a player, you have to make the transition from the frying pan grip to your continental grip. And that's what it's all about in the video today. How do I transition from this to this? So the very first thing that we have to look at is that this is more of a horizontal motion. And we have to deprogram that. We have to lay new neural pathways to this. And whereas a flat serve, you can literally hit with an extended arm and you don't really use this, because if you're doing that, you would hit straight down and the ball goes in the net. You will need this motion, that up motion and the extension of your elbow, and a forearm pronation when you learn your continental grip. So the first thing that I do in the progression is to get more familiar with the grip, of course, and with how I'm using my arm differently. So here are the different ways to actually find your continental grip. So the most teachery way is you have two key points, the underside of your index finger knuckle and the heel pad of your hand. Those 2 points, knuckle, underside, heel pad, want to be on bevel number 2, edge number 2. So if you look at your racket, you see that your racket has bevels. So I'm taking those 2 points. I'm going to the right. If I'm a right-hander, if I'm a left-hander, I'm going to go to the left. Top is bevel number 1, bevel number 2. Okay, got my underside of the heel pad, got my underside of the index finger knuckle. That's my continental grip. It should feel like you're going in for a handshake. That's why it's also called the handshake grip. I think the English call it, the Brits call it the handshake grip, or the chopper grip, I think. The other way that you can find it is you have the V of your hand, place that up here on the frame, and keep your fingers pointing up, and then you slide down. I can get it this way. A way funner way to find your grip is you tuck it under your armpit, take your hand, come all the way from above, and then pull it out like it's a sword. And one other way to find it is how I remember being taught in a very fun way. Shout out to Günther. Hold the racket up like so, as if you could bite into it. And then come from above, because it's really unnatural to do this. See my elbow here? So I'm coming more from the side, and I grip it, and then I bite into my racket. I have no idea why he came up with that. So our first drill in the progression. I want to get from this flat on to leading with the edge as I'm coming up to the ball, and then pronating. So I have to learn that first. And I like to do it with just this. Toss the ball, chop by it. Try not to use your wrist. You don't want to do this. That comes later. We'll talk about the wrist and everything later. It's just from your elbow down, because that's essentially the same motion that you need later on. right? And so you wander up your way here. So you brush by it, and that way you learn how much spin you give in the ball depending on how flat your racket face is or how open it is. If it's completely open and you brush by it, it veers off to my left. And that is exactly what's going to happen later on a lot when you first make your transition. The next one is a little bit of a weird one, but it works, trust me. Go right into no woman's land, just anywhere, doesn't matter. Again, we're still choked up in our continental grip, and the key thing here in this drill is that you're learning, when you're lined up properly, of course, to lead with the edge of the racket. You lead with the edge of your hand. So you're just doing this and look up. One thing that I've found is that, me included, oh, I'm doing this, coach. I'm doing this, coach. And I'm looking somewhere and then I'm looking, oh, I'm not doing this. So look up, because yes, you also want the extension of your body, right? You don't want to collapse. So you look up, am I leading with the edge of the racket? And now the next step is, I'm trying to hit the ball over with the edge. By the way, I'm a little bit more turned. Left side, if I'm a righty, left side faces towards the box that I'm facing, that I want to hit the ball eventually into. Because that's another thing, another difference is I can get the ball in like this when I'm hitting with the frying pan grip. But if I'm doing this, they're going to go over to my left. So I also have to adjust my stance. So again, chop it. And then the next step is, and you can do that just with your hand to learn that. And I actually have a video, the difference between a flat serve and a slice serve, with some drills for pronation, but I'll show them to you here as well. You can just use your arm and your hand. So again, I'm leading with the edge, and then I'm hitting the ball over just with my hand. Next step, wrong racket, choked up. That's all I'm doing. I'm just tossing the ball up, and I'm leading with the edge, and here is where my pronation happens. My thumb is down and back, and now it goes up and out. In the beginning, you will experience something like this. The balls go way over to your left. And that is because you're not turning the racket quite enough, right? Instead of coming flat at the ball, which is what you used to do with the frying pan grip, you're now brushing by it too much. So if that happens as a checkpoint, because it will, trust me, flatten it out. It's easier to learn the flat serve first and then the slice serve. So we're working on the flat serve just with this. Take a step further back, and I would suggest do that 15, 20 times until you get the feel for how much you have to turn your hand and your forearm. And as a good indicator that you did it properly, look at what the racket side with which I'm hitting the body is doing after I'm done hitting. It points outwards. And that is a function of my long arm axis rotation, which is an internal shoulder rotation paired with my pronation, if we want to get into all of that. So, a couple of steps back, you can still stay choked up, or you go to full grip. And again, I would just do half serves. And the more velocity, the more pace you add, the more of your swing you add to it, the more you will probably see things like that. That happens. Again, reminder, turn more. So we have done some of the preliminary drills to get more of a feel that we're actually having to hit up instead of punching forward. So when you're making your change from your frying pan grip to your continental grip, you also have to change your toss. Toss, a lot of times when you have your frying pan grip, is very low and it is very far in front because, again, it's more of a horizontal motion, so I'm doing this. If you now have your proper grip and you hit with the same motion, that ball will never go into the court. So you have to adjust your toss. How do you adjust it? It's got to be higher up and it cannot be quite as far in front. As I said in many of my serve videos, by virtue of you having your left arm pointing to the net post, when you're releasing the ball will already be inside the court. You see that here. If I'm dropping it, that is a good location in terms of how far the ball should be in. So that is how I'm tossing. And now go up to full extension, and I would suggest toss about 2 feet higher than your full extension so that you can hit the ball as it's either on apex or coming down, just coming down. So that's the height. And now I want to work on that up extension. We're not pushing forward anymore. We're extending up. So that's the next step in the progression. Continue to work with an abbreviated motion. You want to get into the letter L. Let that racket drop. Just let your arm go all loose and the wrist goes down and back. And again, I'm tossing. And that's all I'm working on. Again, I am working tons on this part because even if you slice the ball, you're not really peeling around it. You're just not pronating as much. You pronate completely to a flat contact for a flat serve. And when you're slicing the ball, it's about 4 to 6 degrees only that the racket is tilted a little bit more. So really minuscule changes. And that is, again, the reason why this will happen, because we're not used to the pronation. And I'll show you 2 other drills in a second for that pronation. You're sideways to the fence as if I were to serve into this direction. Again, I want to have my chest facing to the fence. Always lead with the edge of the racket. And then I'm pronating. Now I'm perpendicular to the fence. And to continue this all the way, now I'm flat to the fence. So that's another really good way to work on your serve pronation. And do it slow and look up. See if you're really doing it. You can take that drill a step further, but you want to be careful that you're not making the mistake that I see a lot, that you're slipping back into your frying pan grip and you're ending up doing this. So now you're lined up, facing with your shoulder to the fence. If you were not to pronate, you would hit the fence with the edge of the racket. Now it's completely flat. Careful when you're doing this fence drill. I think it's very valuable, but you got to make sure that you do it right. So now, if you want, you can trap that ball, because it also, if you're a little bit further away from the fence here, it helps you with your ball release. Trap it, but I still have my continental grip. Another way to work on your forearm pronation is you have your continental grip, and you see that ball next to me. I'm going to go right next to it, and I'm rolling the ball back with the top of my racket. Just bam. All right, we've run through all the major things. We worked on extending the elbow a little bit more, hitting up to the ball, changing our stance a little bit, because you cannot hit this serve in when you stand in the wrong way. We talked about where the toss has to be slightly differently. We've only been in a half motion so far. Now we're trying to put it all together. And expect this. That the ball, A, doesn't go over at all, or it's going very, very far over to your left if you're a right-hander. Just, again, indicators that you're probably still having too much of a horizontal push motion instead of going up and out. So one of the tips I'm giving my clients is to actually aim deliberately past the service line. We're starting with flat serves, remember that? So again, you're leading with the edge of the racket and then you turn your thumb up and out as you're extending your arm. So on the upswing, extending the arm up to contact point with the full motion. Another thing that I see when people are struggling with that transition is before with the frying pan grip, that was it. They never had to follow through. If you do follow through with the frying pan grip, this happens a lot because you close the racket face over the ball and you're hitting down. So they're not used to actually following through all the way. So you want to finish with the butt cap tucked in at your left hip around the waist, across your belly button, and the butt cap facing this way, facing away from you, because that way I know that I pronated and I didn't do this. All right, that does not work. So I want to finish here. The last little bit. When you're making the transition, check your grip before every single serve, because your brain is gonna want to go back to this. Hey, I've done this a gazillion times. I have laid neural pathways for this. I don't have to put any thought, any effort, any energy into this. So every time before you hit a serve, okay, I'm still in my continental grip, because this here happens a lot. You start in the right grip, but then your brain goes like, there's no way I'm gonna hit the ball with my motion that I've done a million times. So let me change back in mid-swing to my old grip. And then I get the ball in. So again, check it all the time. That was the first try, actually. Let me know down in the comments how your journey from this to this is going. And if you like my content, please feel free to subscribe. Find me on Instagram. You can also go to my website, meikebabel.com, sign up for my newsletter there, and I will see you around on one of those channels.